90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box, live on April 5th, 2020 at 9 o'clock in the morning. My name is Rob Leonard, and joining me, of course, is my brother and award-winning sports writer, Tim Leonard. Hello, brother. How you doing?
Hello, brother Renee. Fine April 6th to you, too.
Is it the 6th? Oh, that's right.
6th, brother.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. I forgot. Today's the 6th. We'll do that again. I'll redo the open later on. Anyway, welcome to another edition of From the Press Box. We are live, and we're talking sports as actually there's some sports to talk about, brother, this week. Last week we had some sports, too, but not as much as actually I think this week we do. So,
a few things going on, brother.
I mean, I know you've been up all night, brother. You know, there was for those who don't know, there was a Sharknado marathon on Sci-Fi last night, and I'm sure Timmy saw all
just 1 and 2, brother. Not a marathon, just 1 and 2.
No, they had at night after midnight they had or not midnight, but they had like Sharknado 5 and 6 on. So
didn't see those. Didn't know they were on.
There was like one he has to go back in time to fix it or something. I think
that was like the last one.
I was like, wow, this is horrible.
Oh, it was good.
Oh, man. Anything to see Tara Reid, you know?
Sharknado is a cinematic classic, brother.
I know, right up there with Godfather and American Graffiti.
Exactly.
Of course. Okay, just checking, you know.
I'm pretty sure Spielberg was involved.
He might have been. You never know. And you know what? In a couple of years, they're going to bring it back. Don't worry. Whether they have Ian Ziering as the lead and Tara Reid, I don't know, but I'm sure the world would love to see this.
I know I would.
Anyway, brother, is it the Basketball Hall of Fame, or it's not the NBA Hall?
It's the Basketball Hall of Fame, brother. Basketball
Hall of Fame's announced
in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Yes, we've never been there. Well, at least I haven't.
I've driven past it, but I've never been inside.
They announced actually a pretty big class this year, brother. You got, I'll just read out the main people, or all of people. You have Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Tamika Catchings, Rudy Tomjanovich, Kim Mulkey, coach of Baylor, and Eddie Sutton. I mean, that's a pretty darn big class, brother. Usually they don't have this many people.
No, they do, but
this many?
Yeah, they actually limited the class a little bit this year because of Kobe. Apparently, they made that decision after the helicopter crash that they were going to, kind of limit the class a little bit this year. Just so they would be able to pay Kobe the kind of tribute that he's worthy of, really. I mean, he's the fourth all-time leading scorer in NBA history. I think he's the only player to play 20 seasons for one team. And he's also made the All-Star team 18 times, which is second only to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in his career.
Wow.
So, his Kobe scored 33,643 points in his career, which is fourth all time behind Kareem, Karl Malone, and if you remember, LeBron James passed him on that list for third place, literally just a few days before Kobe passed away in the helicopter crash.
Right.
So, it's going to be a very, very much a day to celebrate Kobe and his life, but at the same time, when you have a couple players, other players like Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and also Tamika Catchings. I mean, let's not forget Tamika Catchings is one of the greatest women's players ever to play the game.
Right.
But between those four, really, I mean, people are already calling this probably the best Hall of Fame class ever, and it would be hard to argue with that.
Oh, I agree with you on that. Then you have Rudy Tomjanovich, who is a good player, a better coach. Yes. But yeah, agreed. I would definitely include him, because you got to include the coaches, and he was a pretty good player too. So yeah, I remember he was a tough guy to play against. And then of course,
and Kim Mulkey from Baylor, the Baylor coach. She's reached 600 wins faster than any coach in history. I mean, I'm actually a little bit surprised she's in this class because, she's somebody who's still very much active and will continue to be active, likely for at least another decade. She's got a lot more games to coach. She is unique in that she has won titles as a player, an assistant coach, and as a head coach. And as far as I know, that she is the only person to do that in the women's game.
Right,
so, right. Very, very unique, very fiery coach. Not necessarily in the same way as a Pat Summitt or a Gino Auriemma, but she's got a lot of that similar fire in her. And her Baylor teams have been outstanding. I mean, if recent history, that's where Brittany Griner went, and they won a title there with her. So she is somebody who has coached a lot of the best players, or a lot of the best women's players that this country has.
And I hope this starts to bring some attention back to the WNBA. They started out actually pretty well known. They were drawing fans, and the last few years the league is just kind of lost. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if because they play in the more towards the summer, or what. But it's become a lost league because they have a backing of the NBA with them, but they don't seem to have the backing of the fans that they used to have, and I'm not sure why the fans left.
Well. I mean, as far as the WNBA goes, yes, they have the backing of the of the NBA, quote unquote. But let's face it, it's not like the NBA is doing a whole lot to advance that league. The NBA basically wants the WNBA to make it on its own, so they're not doing a whole lot to. I mean, they marginally promote them. It's almost like the players do more promoting on their own than the league does for the WNBA.
But that's not how you push a sport. And NBA knows that. David Stern did become the commissioner of the NBA as the biggest international sport by not doing things, not promoting, not getting things out there in Europe and in Asia and stuff. So I'm not sure why they can't do something similar with the NBA. I mean, I went to one of the games years ago with Suzanne, and Suzanne played high school basketball, and it was a packed house at the Garden, and I'm not sure where the loss happened of the fans, but
I don't know, brother. I covered a lot of games at the Garden. I don't remember it ever being a packed house, but
it was 14,000, 15,000. I mean, I'd consider that a packed house.
Yeah, that's surprising. It's just let's put it this way. The Liberty was something of, I want to say, a niche crowd for the Garden. I covered a lot of WNBA games. And, I mean, hey, Tamika Catchings, she was, first of all, she hustled more than just about any player I've ever seen.
Right.
Let's put that out there first. She played the game the way it needs to be played. Great defensive player. Absolutely great. Could lock down anybody. And was the kind of player who was, I mean, let's put it this way. If she was, if she was, she was basically the female equivalent to Kobe. She had that kind of fire in her game. And, I mean, she played 15 years, has set obviously for the Indiana Fever pretty much has every record that they have because she played an entire 15 years with Indiana. They did win a title in when was it? 2012, I believe. Yeah, 2012 with Indiana. And Tamika Catchings, she played at Tennessee for Pat Summitt, and she actually was in the second half of that Shamiqua Holzclaw era. And as far as the WNBA goes, Tamika Catchings became way more of a better player than Holtzclaw was. Everybody thought Holtzclaw was going to be the star coming out of college, and she was a very good player, but she was not the dominant force I think that people expected her to be in pro ball. And Tamika Catchings was very much that player.
Right.
For the only I'll use the word sad, but it wasn't really sad. She was just kind of overlooked in some regards because she played in Indiana her entire career. You put her on the New York Liberty, and she at this point is now the face of the league.
Well, it would have been a nice thing,
But instead she's in Indiana, and it's a good thing. I mean, a lot of players, let's say, would have probably tried to orchestrate a trade at some point to get out of Indiana, but she apparently liked it there. She liked it there enough to stay for 15 years. 12-time All WNBA selection, 5-time Defensive Player of the Year. She was part of 4 Olympic gold medal teams, and was the 2011 WNBA MVP. So,
not bad.
This was the part that surprised me. She is the first Lady Vol to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame, which is stunning to me. Absolutely stunning.
The Lady Vols are like the premier team, maybe except for Connecticut.
Exactly.
I mean, when women's basketball.
When Pat Summitt was at the height of her coaching career, they were battling UConn pretty much every year.
Right.
And Holtzclaw, Catchings, there were other players in Tennessee who built up that program to one of the premier programs in the country. And I'm stunned that she's the first Lady Vol to be enshrined. But that part turned my head when I heard that. I was like, wait, what? How is that even possible?
Well, let's talk about some of the other people also in that. Of course, Tim Duncan, one of the great players of all time in the NBA, San Antonio Spur. Not a surprise here that he's going in.
No, not at all. No. I mean, Tim Duncan, Shaq gave him the nickname the Big Fundamental. And I think
Shaq could say a word like that?
Shaq is, he's a pretty educated guy. But
I've seen his commercials.
Well, I think that when he said it, I think he was kind of clowning on Tim Duncan.
Right.
Shaqtin' a fool, as they say. But the nickname was perfect for Tim Duncan. He didn't talk any trash. He didn't try to draw any attention to himself on the court. In fact, the less attention that you paid to him on the court, the better he liked it, because then he wouldn't get the double teams, and he would have some room to operate down low and to do his thing. So, Tim Duncan, he's one of those guys where you probably wouldn't think to say, well, who are maybe some of the top 10 players in league history? Tim Duncan should be in that conversation. I mean, that's how good Tim Duncan was.
Right.
He won 5 titles with the Spurs, played 19 seasons, all in San Antonio, league MVP in 2002 and 2003. And this was a guy, he scored, he rebounded, he did his job. And he literally, as far as I'm concerned anyway, probably should be in that top 10 players of all time conversation. He's obviously not in the top 3, 4, 5, but yeah, he's probably in that 9, 10 conversation. That's how good he was, and that's how long he was good. So, this is a guy who, especially with Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, all 3 of those guys, obviously longtime fixtures in San Antonio, and along with Coach Popovich, but they kept a small market team, maybe the smallest market team in the NBA. Not only kept them relevant for more than a decade, but kept them a championship contender for more than a decade. They won titles in 99, 2003, and 2005. I mean, that's a pretty decent spread as far as titles go when you're talking, 3 in 6 seasons.
Right. They beat the Knicks in 99. I remember that very vividly because the Knicks, are all of a sudden in the finals after being team number 8 in the playoffs, and that was shortened season, and then San Antonio just destroyed them. It was just like boom, boom, boom.
It was not a surprise.
Yeah, well, when you're a Knicks fan, you'll take anything you can.
Oh, yeah.
It was so long ago.
When the Knicks finish over 500, it's a thrill these days.
Right, and Kevin Garnett, he played for a long time too, man. You forget how long these guys play. It's not like 10 years and out. These guys play a long time.
Kevin Garnett. I mean, the longevity is something all of these guys, because Garnett played 21 seasons.
I know.
And let's face it, for an NBA player, that's a lifetime. I mean. Think about how much can go wrong with your knees in 21 years of jumping and running up and down the court. I mean, KG was another one like Kobe. Came into the league when he was 18 years old. Yep. He came out of Chicago and just almost immediately just set the league on fire. He was in Minnesota with Stephon Marbury, and everybody thought they were going to be the next great combination. Point guard, big man combination, and obviously it didn't last very long because they got broken up a couple of years later. But KG is he's the only player in NBA history to, I'm going to throw some numbers at you here, brother, to record 25,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, 5,000 assists, 1,500 steals, and 1,500 blocks. So that means he played defense, obviously.
All right.
But not just big man defense. He played. He poked his hand in there, and he got the ball, and he wasn't afraid to share the ball. And he was a good passer for somebody who was 6'11", 7 foot. He was a good passer. He didn't mind sharing the ball, which is a nice quality that you like to see in a big man. Because a lot of times they'll get the ball down low. They got to work to get position under the basket. And that becomes such a difficult thing that as soon as they get the ball, they're not thinking about passing it because they want to get that shot up because it's like, hey, I worked this hard to get the ball. I'm getting my shot.
Right.
KG always had his eyes open. He was always looking. And if somebody, the double team came, collapsed down on him or if for whatever reason he didn't really have a good shot, he couldn't get the move on the inside. He didn't have any problem throwing it outside, skipping a pass to somebody else who was open. He had that good basketball brain that, hey, it's somebody out here, if they have a better shot than me, then they're getting the ball. And that's the same way that LeBron thinks is it doesn't always have to be about me, that, you got to make the good basketball play. You don't make the good superstar play.
Right. That reminds me of, brother, that I forgot which game it was, but it was Michael Jordan, the last pass of the game, and everyone's waiting for him to shoot. He throws it to Bill Wennington under the basket, and Wennington gets 2 points. And the big joke was Wennington and Jordan score, I think it was 57 points, and Wennington had 2, but that's what won the game.
Yeah.
So, but that's how you do it.
That's winning basketball. And when you have your star playing like that, then the rest of the team is going to play like that. Because if you see your star making smart basketball plays and sharing the ball like that, then who are you as the non-star to not play the same way? And that's always a great thing when you have a star player like that is not only willing to share the ball, but willingly shares the ball. Your teams will only be better.
True.
So we'll see.
Very true.
We'll see. It's going to be a great ceremony. Like I said, it's going to be. First of all, it's going to be nice to see. The funny thing was, I saw an interview. I think it was yesterday, where they had Paul Pierce on ESPN with Garnett. All the interviews now, everybody's doing FaceTime interviews,
right?
And Paul Pierce actually said, and I don't know, I don't think he was joking because he sounded serious, but he said he thought about retiring the same summer as KG had already announced his retirement, and obviously Kobe had already announced his retirement. So Paul Pierce said on during the interview yesterday on ESPN, he said that he decided to play another year because he started thinking like, wow, that Hall of Fame class is already loaded. Like that's gonna reduce my chances. He wants to be a first ballot guy, so he was like, yeah, I'm gonna play one more season, and then I'll have an easier time trying to get in the year after these guys. So
sometimes you have to look at that stuff, brother.
He was already thinking about it. He's like, man, I'm not going to be a first ballot guy if I go in with all these guys, because there's already a lot of spots that are locked up here.
and of course, one more person we haven't talked about yet, Rudy Tomjanovich, of course, Houston Rockets coach for many years, played for Houston, big time Houston guy. He's also involved in another side. They're not going to mention this at the Hall of Fame, but him and Kermit Washington, the punch happened, which has been looked into, and it wasn't, anything more than a punch, but it was a big story at one point in our lives.
Well, it was a massive incident.
Right, I know that, but
that was when there was a brawl. That was back in the day when the NBA they did a lot of brawling in the NBA back then.
Yeah, that's true.
Kermit Washington got he was involved in a fight, and I think it was under the basket. I forget who it was with, but Rudy Tomjanovich came running in, and all he wanted to do was break up the fight, and Kermit Washington just wasn't even looking, just turned and threw a punch, and just destroyed Rudy Tomjanovich's face.
Right.
And it was unfortunate because Rudy had to have a couple of surgeries, and they had to basically put his face back together. So this is it's an unfortunate incident, but it also kind of made the NBA kind of take a look at itself and say, what are we doing here where we're allowing situations to happen like this, where our play, because the doctors said it was that the damage that Rudy suffered to his face was like he'd been in a car accident.
Yeah, it was because it was I don't want to say it's a natural response, but the way it happened, there was no thought in it. It was just a giant punch. So
yeah, Kermit Washington. I mean, first of all, Kermit Washington was very apologetic about what happened,
right?
For the rest of his life. And
Rudy T never took it personal. And I give him credit.
Kermit, all he said he saw was color of the jersey.
Right,
and he said he saw somebody coming up behind him. He saw it like out of peripheral vision. And he thought whoever that person was about to do him harm, so he just turned and swung. So and Rudy was like, "Hey, I was just trying to break up the fight. He wasn't gonna make a sneak attack on the guy or anything like that. He was just trying to be a peacemaker." And for that, he it was life altering injuries for him.
And the I don't want to say bad part, but sad part of the when you see the footage, they tend to show it in slow motion.
Yeah.
But if you actually watch it in real time, it happens so fast. This is when slow motion isn't helpful to the situation, because you see everything how it happened. But when you see it in real time, you realize this was just a total mistake. It wasn't on purpose or anything. So it's good to see Rudy T as a coach going in. He had a great run as a coach of the Rockets. A good coach, a very good coach, actually. So
outstanding coach, outstanding. I mean, obviously, every great coach has great players, and Rudy T had a lot of great players. Among them, Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, guys like that.
Right.
But if they say great coaches have great players, but if you're a great coach and you have bad players, you're not going to be such a great coach. That's just the way it is. So you got to be able to do something with those players, and Rudy T was more than able to do that.
And quickly, brother, Kim Mulkey and Eddie Sutton. Give it just a little background on them.
I mean, we talked about Kim Mulkey before.
Yeah, that's right.
What she's done at Baylor. Eddie Sutton was a coach at he coached Arkansas, he coached Kentucky, coached Oklahoma State. He's a guy. He's made a few stops in his career, but he's one of those college basketball lifers who's had a lot of success in his career. I mean, obviously, especially with Kentucky, he's I mean, I don't even know what you say. I mean, he's one of those guys who for me, growing up in the 80s and those times, he was one of the top coaches and ran some great programs. So he's somebody who for me is college basketball back in those years, and won games, won titles. What else can you say? I mean, he's a guy who I was actually kind of surprised he wasn't already in the Hall of Fame. So
right.
Nice recognition for him.
Did they give a date on the ceremony, brother?
You know what? I didn't catch it, but let's. I'll look it up during the commercial and we'll check it out then. But it's
okay.
It's not soon. Let's put it that way.
Okay, because hopefully, we'll be able to have less social distancing. But we'll see.
Shall see, brother.
Well, they've never done a Hall of Fame where it's Hall of Fame. Well, you can set up the speech, but you can't set up the crowd. And that's part of it too. One thing we should say: that ESPN and the NBA might be setting up a horse tournament for programming, because obviously right now ESPN is showing lots of different things. They showed an old WrestleMania the other day, but there's talk that there might be a horse tournament where they can socially distance themselves and still shoot balls. So that's something I'm not surprised with. I'm surprised you haven't seen, and you would know about this, brother. You're into the fantasy baseball. Why you haven't seen any baseball fantasy thing pop up? Stratomatic baseball, or remember when we were kids that we had that Sports Illustrated baseball thing?
I don't know. That was hard to say, because I mean, there's no action.
There's no action, but it's something.
People aren't gonna watch people rolling the dice.
Well, I'm not sure of that, because they're showing games that I might be interested, because I like old games. And Channel 9 yesterday showed Super Bowl 45 because there's nothing else on. Now it's a Fox channel, and it was a Fox game, so maybe that was part of the deal too. But I don't mind the old games, but I know a lot of people who say, well, why are they showing this? So to put something that might be new or different, fantasy of baseball thing, and use last year's numbers, or old numbers. Let's have the 73 Mets play the 86 Mets, or the 86 Mets take on the 1998 Yankees, or something like that, just to have a little fun.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to put something together like that, because you can do it by a computer,
right?
But you'd have to put together the clips and be able to show like whatever, like if you had the 2000 Mets playing against the 86 Mets, you'd have to have clips of here's Mike Piazza, hitting a home run, or here's Doc Gooden in '86, dropping a curveball on somebody and striking them out, something like that.
That's a good point. I mean, I remember they did it with the NFL years ago on ESPN, and Sam Huff was complaining that I forgot the player that got around him, but he goes, "That guy would never get around me."
Sam Huff liked to complain,
and it was just funny listening to Sam Huff, 45 years later, still complaining about someone who might pass him or not pass him. By the way, brother, I forgot which channel showed it. Might have been Major League Baseball channel or whatever, but they showed the Piazza game, as it's now known as. And of course, you were there that night
I was there
at Shea Stadium. And any memories of that game? Because it was such a, you watch it and you don't think it's that important of a game because it's just a comeback game. But the cheering that happened afterwards, it was a release, and it was something that I'm not sure I expected. And even watching back now, I still get a little emotional. And it's only a baseball game, but I think it also shows how important baseball and sports are to our life, really.
Yeah, and that kind of is something that we're actually going to talk about a little bit later, a similar topic. But it's basically what I always will remember from that game it's something that aggravated me because it didn't get into the paper. Piazza hit his home run, and we were running around like crazy people because, number one, the Bergen Record always had an earlier deadline than any other paper, and I'm not even really sure why, but we did. So I was covering it with Pete Caldera, who was a guy who I've known for a long time. We went to college together, and he stayed upstairs writing the story because he only had 15, 20 minutes to finish the story and to get something in for the paper. So he couldn't even bother to go down to the locker room because it's going to take you at least 5 minutes to get downstairs, 5 minutes to get back upstairs. You're only going to have a couple minutes to talk to somebody. So he stayed in the seat, and he was writing and banging it out on his computer. And somehow, some way, I got into the Braves clubhouse before anybody, and immediately made a beeline for Chipper Jones. I saw him sitting at his club at his locker, and got 30 seconds with nobody else there. And I just said to him, I said, Chipper, I said, I know nobody likes to lose. I said, but can you maybe take a pass on this one and look at the greater good? And Chipper Jones, I couldn't believe it, actually said, you know what? He goes, I'm actually kind of happy the Mets won this game.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe that. I mean, I was absolutely stunned that a professional athlete, all of whom I've never met a professional athlete that didn't hate to lose, but a professional athlete saying, I'm actually kind of glad the Mets won this game. Asked him two more questions, and then all of a sudden, the crowds came, and all of a sudden, after, he was in the middle of answering my second question when, 10 more people gathered in around us. And I got out of there real quick and ran upstairs. Didn't want to wait for the elevator because who knew, the elevator back then at Shea Stadium was spotty at best. Ran upstairs, and Pete was like 5 minutes from deadline, and I'm like, dude, I got your lead quote. And he's like, no, well, whatever. And I read him the quote. He's like, can't use it. It's already written. He goes, I'm going to have to rewrite everything. I'm like, that quote is worth rewriting everything. And he said, all he said was can't do it. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. I mean, I just got the greatest quote that.
That's the lead quote. That's the beginning of the first sentence.
Should have been. And
Should have been.
I'm sorry if you got to rewrite stuff, but you got to. I personally, I would have called the desk. I would have said, look, I need an extra 5 minutes. I just got this great quote, and I would have read them the quote, and they would have said, take the extra 5 minutes.
Right, I'm sure they would have.
I understand why. Because when you're on deadline like that, and you're trying to finish, and you got 5 minutes left, and you still got about 200 words to write or whatever it was. I get it, but I wasn't happy about it. Let's put it that way.
Understandable. You're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College, from the press box here, as we are every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., and we're live on this April 6, 2020. Don't forget about the Morning Madhouse, which was on right before us with Eric Fischetti and friends. That's 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. A little music, a little fun. And also, don't forget about Thunder Road Radio. Join Kim Tracy every Sunday, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. as she plays the music of Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band right here on 90.3 WHPC. Brother, couple of things. The U.S. Open in golf for men's golf has been canceled. And not surprising.
Well, no, not surprising at all.
Okay.
Not surprising at all. I mean, that's, everything's getting canceled. So,
well, I know that we should say that as of right now, the U.S. Open tennis, which right now the tennis center is being turned into a hospital for the coronavirus, has not been canceled yet. They obviously could take the part pretty fast if they needed. Hopefully in 2 months they won't be needed, or 3 months, but we don't know. We don't know what's happening. We think we might be plateauing this week, but we want to crush the curve, not plateau the curve. So this is going to be a tough week
Fingers crossed, brother. I don't think we're done with this thing yet, but fingers crossed.
I don't think so either, but
everybody should be staying home and not being an idiot.
Well, there's a lot of people out there. So anyway, so it's everyone says, oh, the USTA. Well, the reason they're using USTA is it's a city facility. Right. That's why they're not going to Citi Field or Yankee Stadium, because they're privately owned now, even though they have agreements for the land. The stadiums are privately owned, and that happened in 2009 when the stadiums went up. And it was actually a part of a whole other thing, not just from the city, but it was also there was write-offs from Major League Baseball if you got a stadium by a certain time. So that was part of it too. That's why they both got new stadiums or built new stadiums. So
well, and the other part of that is if you've been to either stadium, obviously that both places are very big, and I'm talking about Yankee Stadium and Citi Field. They're obviously enormous places, but there's not a lot of space to put hospital beds.
Well, you'd have to use the field, and then you'd have to use. You really can't use the ramps. The way that wraps around the stadium. You really can't use those.
That's my point. Is that it takes up a lot of space, but there's not a lot of usable space. Because, like you said, with the ramps would be a problem. I mean, could you use the field? Yeah, I guess you could, but who wants to be outside? It's one thing to set up something like that in Central Park,
which they're also doing.
Yeah, which they've already done, but it's not that big an area. I mean, they took a spot of the park that's flat, and they brought in some heaters, and they turned it almost into like something like a tennis bubble.
Right. No, exactly. That's what they're exactly doing, and they're doing it in Prospect Park. They're doing it in Van Cortlandt Park. Right. And anywhere there's a flat area, I wouldn't be surprised if the Flushing Meadows is. Parts of the park, not just the stadium, but parts of the park are turned into something because they need beds. They need the space, and they need to be able to treat people. But the other thing that we're still dealing with is, it's still not exactly warm out. No, it's not. Yesterday was pretty nice out, but it still gets cold if you're in a hospital bed.
Exactly.
It's not like you're wearing your clothes. It's not like you're sleeping in your pants.
Well, and one of the symptoms of the COVID-19 that doesn't get talked about very much is you get chills. And if you're outside and even if they are pumping in heat, you're gonna be cold. Right. And as far as I'm concerned, when you're sick, there's not many feelings worse than being cold when you're sick.
Yeah, you start to chatter. Who was it? Chris Cuomo said that he's got the coronavirus right now, or COVID-19, whatever the official term is, and he said that he cracked a tooth from shivering so much.
Shivering, exactly.
And he's in his basement, and wherever he lives, I'm not sure where he lives, but he's in his basement right now. He's locked in his basement. So
yeah. I don't know about locked, but he's behind closed door in his basement.
Right, and be nice if Mama Matilda showed up with a thing of sauce and some meatballs, but
she's not coming over. What are you, nuts?
No, but she can send it over. She can say, "Hey, come get it," or someone.
Yeah, she probably is. She probably. I'm sure she's sending. Isn't Chris Cuomo? Isn't he married to some famous chef or something?
No, Andrew was dating Sandra Lee.
All right, maybe that's what
and then I don't think they are together anymore. We should say that one thing. I was listening to the Cuomo Brothers Comedy Hour a couple of times when they've been on the air together. They're
pretty funny together, brother. Like they remind me of me and you.
Yeah, and I'm the older brother, and you're the younger brother, and you're Chris, and I'm Andrew. So anyway, one thing that I noticed they were talking, and there's always a big thing, and Mom's always said it's sauce because that's what Grandma said, but it's sauce. They don't say gravy. They're much more Italian than most people. And we're Italian too, but we're not Cuomo Italian. But they said it was sauce, not gravy. Because there's some people think
I think that's the regional thing, depending on where in Italy your family is from.
Yeah, well,
I know, friend of the show, AJ Benza. I know he likes the word gravy. So
yeah, well, AJ's a little Italian too. So we'll,
AJ's a lot of Italian.
He wears it as pride. He's So you're right. He does call it gravy. You're right.
So. I kind of interchanged the terms because, I kind of like the word gravy, but, for a lot of people, gravy means, brown stuff that you put on meat as opposed to red stuff that you put on sauce. So
I can see gravy if you've added like a lot of things to it. If there's like meat and sausage and
the way Grandma used to make.
Tomato. Well, she didn't have all that in there.
You put that big the big bone in there, and
that's what I remember.
Let it simmer for about 8 hours.
Yeah, and then like 5 PM on a Sunday, you start dishing it out.
Right. So start cooking it at 9 o'clock in the morning for dinner at 6.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was a big thing for a long time. A couple of things. The NFL draft is still happening, brother. It's in a couple of weeks, the 23rd to the 25th. They have not said how they're going to do this yet.
No, they pretty much have.
Is it going to be social distancing, or
of course it's going to be like the draft used to be. Before ESPN turned it into an event. I mean, that's what's happening. It's not going to be necessarily a bunch of people gathered together in the same room. There's not going to the players aren't going to be there. There's not going to be the big picture with Roger Goodell, and it's not going to be parading him across the stage and doing the interviews. There's not going to be none of that. It's going to be like how the NFL draft was
in 79,
40 years ago,
76, 70, or 77,
well,
78,
pre ESPN, whenever that was.
Yeah, well, that was brilliant when ESPN came up with the idea that, you know what, we have no programming. Australian rules football can only land us so many hours a day. Let's show the NFL draft, and it turned out, if you think about it, it really started to make the NFL really, really popular.
Yeah, it wasn't genius, brother. It was fortuitous.
It was also desperation. It was also desperation, brother.
Yeah, that's my point. Is that here was a brand new channel that desperately needed programming, and somebody I'll give them credit for the good idea. Somebody had the good idea to say, hey, let's ask the NFL if they don't mind if we put some cameras in their draft. And whoever it was at the NFL said, hey, if you want to televise this, be my guest. I don't even think the NFL charged ESPN.
Probably not.
For the first few drafts.
ESPN
there was no rights fees or anything like that.
Because they hadn't thought about it.
Right. We're just going to bring a camera. And then a few years later, it's one of the most popular programming bits on ESPN. And the NFL was like, hey, we can make money off of this.
Right. And now it's both on NFL Network and ESPN. Right. And it's big showbiz. Guys have made their career now, making the picks. Of course,
there was no Mel Kiper Jr., before ESPN. There was no Todd McShay. there was no Frank Caliendo doing impersonations of Mel Kiper, saying Todd.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
A lot of people have this what a lot of people probably thought was a silly idea. They have that to thank for their careers, especially Mel Kiper Jr.
Oh God, yeah, and he's definitely
who was what? He was like a mailman or something before all of this.
He was just a guy. He was one of those nerds who, one of the 17 nerds who would show up in 1978 and cheer. You remember, or I guess it's like the year that Phil Simms got picked, and everyone's going, "Who's that?" They were booing, and nowadays would be a big deal, but I remember back then it was a big deal, for the time at least, that they're booing Phil Simms. They don't know who he is, but I guess some people at the hotel it was at. It wasn't even at a.
It wasn't at an arena. It was at a hotel.
It wasn't So and now they spread it around. So it used to be at Radio City, and then it was at I've got some of the other places, but now they spread it around because it is it is a big deal for the NFL and some of the TV networks.
Yeah, they've done it at the theater at the MSG back when it was called the Felt Forum.
Right.
I still don't understand what the hell Felt Forum means.
Didn't you once go to one of them, brother?
I went to a couple of the NBA drafts. I don't recall if I went to a football draft. I did.
I'm thinking of. I remember seeing you on TV when TBS showed the draft, the NBA draft, like '85 or '86.
I went to several NBA drafts. I want to say the first one I went to was when Buck Williams and Albert King came out the same year from Maryland. Because I was like, I wanted to go see my boys, and I went. We
should say that Timmy is a Maryland guy, even though he went to Hofstra.
They should know that by now.
Well, some people might not know.
We've talked about Maryland enough.
Okay.
But I went because I wanted to see. I knew Buck Williams was going to be a high pick, and then Buck Williams goes to the Nets at number 3, and then Albert King wound up going to the Nets. I want to say he was like the number 10 pick, and. Yeah, I mean, that was great for me. I was like, wow, I'm going to get to see my guys playing local. This is beautiful. And then I went a couple of times more as a fan, and then I wound up covering a few of them.
Right.
I still remember when the Nets drafted Pearl Washington, the number of people who just raced down. That was at the theater, Felt Forum, whatever they were calling it at that point. And I still remember one kid racing past me, 18, 19 years old, whatever. I mean, or maybe 21, whatever, like close in age to Pearl Washington. And as he's racing past me, he's yelling to nobody in particular, I got free tickets for life. Like, he was thrilled for himself. He didn't care about Pearl. He was thrilled for himself. I got free tickets for life. And I'm like, all right, who are you? Wherever this is coming from.
Yeah, and Pearl didn't last too long in the
no, sadly.
Sadly,
that's
so
true.
We should say that one thing I have to make a little comment about, brother.
What's that, brother?
You know, a lot of these sports channels have no programming right now. That's why I said they should do fantasy baseball or football, whatever. Have some fun with it for a little while. You also have to be long seasons. It could be a week at a time. You know, just have a beginning, middle, and end. But you know what? Don't show WrestleMania on ESPN and talk about it as if it's real. You know, if I want to hear real wrestling announcing, I love real wrestling announcing. You know, JR is one of the best in the world. If you go back, Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body were fantastic together. Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan, or Bobby the Weasel Heenan, depending on how you want to look at it. But don't have the ESPN guys talking about, like, you know, what it really is, or they don't do it that way, but it is staged and preconceived wins or loses, or who's going to win or lose. It's all preconceived. So it is entertainment, and it is sports entertainment. And I still watch it on occasion because it's on Monday nights. People know who is going to win before these matches happen. Right, and they do, you know, get hurt. We do know that. You know, we've known the history of the WWE of people who've gotten hurt, and they wasn't supposed to. But don't treat it like it's real. Like I saw it on ESPN, and Fox Sports 1 has been showing it as part of their sports. But it's not a sport; it's sports entertainment. And there's reasons why. The original reason they call it sports entertainment is so they get the boxing commission out of it. Right, because they can't oversee the whole thing. Right. So I wish they would treat it as, you know, okay, yeah, they're not jumping off that cage. You know, it's 20 feet high. I know, I see it, and I understand that part. But it's still sports entertainment. And WrestleMania 36 happened this past week, and there was no audience, which was amazing. You know, because you can't stop the WWE 52 weeks a year. They provide programming to USA, to Fox and Fox Sports 1, and a couple other things too, and they have their own network. So it was kind of interesting how they did this over 2 days. Obviously, they kept it going. They didn't cancel it, which I was surprised by. But as you call him, America's, I don't want to say favorite idiot, America's idiot, Gronkowski, was part of this, which I'm not surprised. This was, well, I mean, he signed a contract with the WWE several months ago. Right. So, you know, you knew he was going to be involved with this. He actually was one of the hosts of WrestleMania 36
But as things happen in the WWE, much like you just said, brother, this is sports entertainment, because in what other sport could the host of an event leave the arena that night as the champion? Because that's what happened last night. Gronk, or like I said, as I like to call him, America's Idiot.
That's right. Not favorite idiot, America's Idiot.
No, it's just America's Idiot.
There's a difference.
He was not involved in the match, and apparently this was for something called the 24/7 title. I don't know what that means, and I'm not going to pretend to know anything about wrestling because I don't watch it. But I happened to see this last night. I don't know if it was on ESPN or if it was on the website or whatever. But the brawl, they had like I guess what they used to call a Pier 6 brawl. And there's like 15 wrestlers outside the ring, all just, wailing away at each other and, doing that pretend fight thing that they do. And there was a balcony where Gronk was sitting that I guess was the press box or whatever. I've never seen a balcony being used, which obviously later on it becomes obvious why they're doing it. Because Gronk then leaped from this balcony. It was probably a good 10 feet up or 15 feet up. So basically everybody caught him. They all go to the ground. Gronk grabs whoever the 24/7 champion was. I didn't catch his name, didn't care, but pins him. Referee counts it out, and then Gronk grabs the belt and literally ran out the door.
You think that he'd be preparing for when Tom Brady starts playing for the Buccaneers, because he could probably still play if he could jump 10 feet or 15 feet like that.
Well, his body has obviously gotten a rest since he retired.
Right. So,
but the best part for me, brother, is here's Gronk in the post-match interview, and he's got this 24/7 belt over his shoulder, like the wrestlers do. And he's sitting there, they're asking him about it. Gronk, you've won, he's like, I've won 3 titles in my life. And he's patting the belt, like, doing the whole thing. And he says, but this will be my most cherished title.
Oh, God.
And I lost it. And all I could think was, how do you like them apples, Patriots fans?
Oh, God.
Couldn't believe it. My most cherished title. Oh my God, I was laughing. It was hysterical.
That's like Derek Jeter winning the WWE championship and saying, I won all these World Series rings, but you know what? This WWE belt's the best.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I was like, who writes this crap? This is I couldn't stop laughing. It was hysterical.
Well, the fact that Gronk could actually read the cue cards would be something.
Exactly. That's another thing. That's another thing, bro. Good point. Very good point.
Oh, God.
Just to point out for any wrestling fans who might be listening, somebody named Drew McIntyre is now the WWE heavyweight champion after defeating Brock Lesnar. And also like you said, the event was taped at the WWE Performance Center in Orlando with no fans in attendance due to the coronavirus. It had been scheduled to be held at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, which obviously is pretty close to Orlando. But that's obviously the correct decision was made not to put 70,000 fans together in Florida where the virus is spreading.
Right, and one thing about the WWE, it holds the largest attendance, indoor attendance, 93,000 at the. Was it the Lions Stadium, I guess, in Detroit, or one of those places?
What, the Superdome?
No, not the Superdome. What was the stadium in Detroit called before they took it down?
I don't even remember.
I forgot the name. Wherever that was where it was. 93,000 people, which is still a record because technically it was a dome stadium. So, I mean, and not that I knock wrestling. I still remember when we were kids, Tim, and Warner Wolf was on WCBS, and he would show the wrestling highlights the next day because it was shown on MSG when they had the monthly event at the Garden. And that was a big deal. And, back then it was sports, and it was technically moderated by the Boxing Commission. So When Vince McMahon totally took over, he said, I don't need anyone looking over my shoulder. And he renamed it Sports Entertainment. And then he basically admitted that, yeah, it's predetermined. But like I said, those, you jump off a 20-foot fence, or you get a table slammed over you. We got about a minute, brother.
Warner Wolf loved him some Ivan Putski, that's for sure.
He loved him, Ivan Putski, but he loved Andre the Giant, because remember there was a picture of Andre's fist, and I think it was bigger than Warner's head.
Yeah, it probably was. Warner was a small guy.
And one more thing, brother. We have about a minute and a half. I know you'll agree with me with this. These Donald Trump press conferences, please don't ask him about when sports are starting again. He has no idea. He wants the NFL to start on time. He mentioned the WWE as part of sports, which it's not. Yeah,
because Vince McMahon is in his back pocket. No, right. Trump had a conference with all the sports leaders on Saturday, I think it was.
Which he mentioned every one of them in the press conference.
And he said he wants the NFL to start on time, and I don't think he understands what that means. And
he doesn't.
How much preparation time is involved with getting ready for an NFL season? These players will need at least a month of practice and then exhibition games. So you're talking 6 to 7 weeks minimum to get ready for a season that he wants to start in September, which means that they would have to start sometime in July. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, it might not. We don't know. But at the same time, it's tough to know exactly when it's going to happen. And he shouldn't be talking about that. Anyway, brother, we got to get going. You've been listening to From the Press Box here every Monday on 90.3 WHPC, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. I'm Rob Leonard. He is Tim Leonard. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Sean, for keeping us on the air. And coming up next at 10 o'clock, Tim, Big Ed Newland's Good Gold Show. You know what that means.
Means I'll be listening.
I'll be listening, too. And, it's funny because Ed takes forever for Ed to get from his house to the college. And right now there's no one on the road. Ed could have been there in like 20 minutes, 15 minutes. But he can't. He has to do it, at his house like we are. But at the same time, if it was a regular day, Ed would take like 50 minutes to get there. And it should take 30.
Wrap it up, brother.
We're traffic. Take care. Bye-bye.